Let's make them pay.
They're everywhere.
Call me right now.
The lawyers who claim they'll solve our problem.
You may be entitled to a large cash award.
Bill O'Reilly wants more law.
If we have prison overcrowding, all right, we'll build more prisons.
And so America will lock these people up?
I just wanted to put a sign out that said I was in business.
The government calls us outlaws.
We have too many laws. Let's get rid of some. That's our show tonight.
And now, John Stossel.
Don't you hate those lawyers who defend nasty criminals? I do when I see them help murderers get away with it. At least I think they were murderers. Casey Anthony, didn't she chloroform her kid and go out partying? O.J. Simpson, didn't he stab his wife to death? But they were acquitted thanks to good lawyering. Defense lawyers even say, it's not my job to determine if the person's guilty or innocent. Every American deserves a defense. So they fight hard for some horrible people. Child molesters, muggers, rapists. How can they live with themselves? Well, here's one of those despicable people, Norman Reamer. In fact, he's head of the Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. So how can you live with yourself?
I've been a criminal defense lawyer my entire life, my entire career. And proud of it. The founders of this country had a brilliant idea. It's the idea that when somebody is accused of a crime, when the state marshals the most awesome power they have, short of warfare, the power to prosecute, condemn, imprison, kill, and certainly to stigmatize for life, that person should never stand alone. They should have a defense lawyer to stand with them.
And when you see the O.J. verdict and the Casey Anthony verdict go down, you're just comfortable with all that?
I'm comfortable with the idea that everybody deserves to have someone put the government to the test of whether or not they can prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'm comfortable with the idea that we have a much bigger problem in this country with wrongful conviction than we have with wrongful acquittal. This is a country that is over-criminalized. We need to have people...
Over-criminalized meaning too many laws, too many people in jail, and we'll get to that. But let me do one more example. Early in her career, Hillary Clinton was a defense lawyer, and the Washington Free Beacon recently discovered a recording of her laughing, bragging that she got a reduced sentence for a man accused of raping a 12-year-old girl.
Got him off with time served in the county jail. He's been in the county jail about 2 months.
And yet she apparently thought the guy was guilty because she laughs about his passing a polygraph.
Forever destroyed my faith in polygraphs.
So, yuck, yuck, yuck. I mean, shouldn't she be ashamed of that?
There's nothing to be ashamed of in representing someone. Whether or not it's appropriate to be laughing, and I don't know what the context of that was. I haven't seen the whole interview. I don't know whether that was a nervous laugh. I don't know what it was. I'm not here to defend Hillary Clinton. She was a defense lawyer, if she was, for about 5 minutes. I've been a defense lawyer for 30 years. And I will proudly stand, frankly, with a person who's innocent or guilty, because even the guilty deserve to have somebody advocate for them to prevent the lowest moment in their life from necessarily defining the rest of their lives.
And to broaden it beyond criminal defense lawyers, all lawyers, do you notice on the surveys of which professions contribute to society's well-being, lawyers are at the bottom?
I can tell you this. When somebody's in trouble, and in this country, we are arresting 14 million people a year. They need to have somebody with them.
And I should point out that journalists come quite close to the bottom of that list, too.
We have to live with those caricatures. That's a reality.
All right, now, despite our hostile beginning, I invited Norman on this show because I think he makes some very good points. It's natural when something bad happens to want government to do something to stop it. And to many people, the obvious thing to do is pass a law. And politicians do it all the time. They pass more every year. And now America has so many criminal laws, government can't even count how many there are. We are buried in law. And that's one reason I wrote, no, they can't. Politicians say they can solve all our problems with laws, but no, they can't. So Norman, I mean, that's the criminal code about. Explain the harm that these laws do.
You make some excellent points, obviously. First of all, just to give you put some perspective on it, because numbers really do paint the picture. In 1900, we had about 100 federal criminal provisions. Today, we have almost 5,000, and if you count the criminal provisions that are buried in the regulations, it's more than 300,000, and as you say, they haven't even been able to count them. 2.1 million is the number of people who are in prison in this country as we sit here tonight. We are the #1 incarcerator in the world in terms of per capita and actual numbers, and that is disgraceful.
More than China, more than Russia.
More than every country we know of except North Korea, because we don't know about North Korea. But it is shameful, and it's costing us a fortune. There are very few people left in this country that don't have a loved one, a neighbor, a co-worker, a friend who's had some brush with the criminal law. We now have between 65 and 70 million people in this country with criminal records.
The biggest crime, driving without a license.
Absolutely. And most of those people are not being charged with driving without a license for any other reason than as a regulatory matter. They didn't pay child support. They didn't pay traffic fines. But those are criminal offenses.
Right, they broke the law.
Sure. And so because of that, we're going to impede their opportunity for the rest of their lives. And the other thing we have to do is stop using the criminal law for every single thing. What we've done is we've used the criminal law.
I'm with you on that. The reason for the 2 million in jail is mostly because people tried to alter their consciousness by using drugs. But people like Bill O'Reilly, whose show is by far the most popular in cable news, want tougher laws against people who buy and sell drugs.
I don't care whether you're addicted or not, and I don't care whether you have 7 pills or not. These lead to death, all right? Yes. That's provable. And if you sell them, you are going to spend a lot of time in prison. If we have prison overcrowding, all right, we'll build more prisons.
What's wrong with that?
It is a waste of human resources, and it is an economic waste.
Maybe crime is down because we lock up so many people.
There's no statistic that backs that up. In fact, in those states, and Texas, by the way, a red state, which has attacked its over-incarceration problem, they reduced their prison population, and at the same time, they reduced their crime. Now, that's
other states, too. He's right about that. Thank you, Norman. It's a little depressing talking to him and thinking about people's lives being wrecked. So let's lighten things up. Let's talk about America's stupider laws, like the Emergency Sasquatch Ordinance. Yes, such a law really exists. After idiot politicians actually believed this video depicting a supposedly giant hairy ape known as Sasquatch or Bigfoot was real, they passed a law that makes it illegal for anyone to kill a Sasquatch. The law is also the title of Kevin Underhill's book. He writes about that and other, as the subtitle says, useless laws that human beings have actually enacted. So how do we get the Bigfoot law?
Well, that one, there's 2 possible reasons. One is Sasquatch protection, and the other is...
But the politicians aren't that dumb.
Well, in this case, they may not have been. They may have been worried about people who are dumb, because it was either Sasquatch protection or they wanted protection from people who did believe in Sasquatch and might come up running around the forest with guns trying to hunt something man-shaped, which seems like a bad idea.
You write about the bird poop law.
Also known as the Guano Islands Act of 1856, still on the books. There was no artificial fertilizer at the time, so we needed more. Turns out a great place to get fertilizer is, well, it turns out bird poop makes a great fertilizer, and a good place to get it is on islands where seabirds have lived undisturbed for thousands of years. And if you can imagine this, some of those islands had deposits up to 50 meters deep.
I'd rather not imagine it, but okay, go ahead.
And so they passed a law that said if you encounter one of these, you can claim it, and it will effectively become part of the United States, at least temporarily, so that you can mine the dung.
In Connecticut, no person shall take any gray squirrel, rabbit, or other fur-bearing animal by the use of dynamite or other explosive compound.
Right. Right. This is for, right, you thought Caddyshack was fiction, but in fact, it happens.
You have a category, the government not minding its own business.
Yes. If you needed to get a ridiculous law and you need an example quickly, you should go to any state's criminal code or the federal criminal code and look under the section on, it's usually called offenses against decency and morals. And you're guaranteed to find stuff in there that is completely ridiculous.
In the criminal code, still in the books, in Georgia, Idaho, lots of states, laws against fornication.
Right.
But they've been...
And so no one fornicates anymore.
These laws are harmless, right? Because they're not enforced.
And are you confident that somebody's not going to use one of these laws just as harassment, which is...
No, I'm not confident. And so, but there's one place where there's some hope that people are wising up.
Minnesota.
What happened there?
Minnesota last year, the governor had a program, he called it the Unsession, and they would go out and try to make lists of laws that were outdated or that they didn't need for some other reason, like it was covered by federal law or something similar. And they managed to find over 1,100 laws that they decided they really didn't need, and they repealed all of them last time.
1,100 laws gone. It's a start. Thank you, Kevin Underhill. Minnesota's move was a good start, but I prefer the Stossel rule, which is that for every law politicians pass, they have to repeal 5 old ones. Thank you. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened yet, but we can dream, can't we? And to keep this conversation going, please use that hashtag #BuriedInLaw. Let us know what you think. Coming up, the story of the rich guy living in this fancy apartment. This is his view. He sued me, and he just got put in jail. Also, not all lawyers are evil. There are the good guys who ride to the rescue. That's next.
The government tried to take our home.
The government wanted to bulldoze my home so that someone else could live on my land.
What? I thought your home was your castle. But no, I'm wrong. In America today, government can just take your home and give it to somebody else. Big government uses big law to do lots of things that seem to violate what's in here, the Constitution. Fortunately, a few lawyers will take your case for no fee if government steps on you, and one is Scott Bullock of the Institute for Justice. I have to admit that when I heard about your firm and seemed like a good idea, libertarians getting together to fight bad laws with lawsuits, I said, are you kidding me? The answer to anything can't be more lawsuits.
Well, it can be, because there's a vital need to have Americans' rights protected. They're guaranteed in the Constitution, and they have to be protected by an engaged court system where judges actually police legislatures and executive branch officials in order to rein them in, to make sure constitutional rights are protected and limits on government power are respected. That's what the Institute for Justice is all about.
And it's a relatively new group, but you've already had 5 cases before the Supreme Court. 4 victories.
That's right. That's right. We've had about a 70% track record of success in either striking down laws or shaming legislatures enough to try to repeal the laws after we've challenged them.
And the one you lost before the Supreme Court was the Kelo case about taking away someone's home.
That's right. That was a challenge to eminent domain abuse. Eminent domain was designed to be used for true public uses like roads or bridges, not for private development projects.
And they were going to take these people's homes for a developer. The developer never showed up.
Never showed up.
They just took the homes down.
Now there's an empty field there filled with feral cats and demolition debris where the development was supposed to take place. That was a great example, though, of when you do public interest law and you raise awareness of these issues, you not only argue in the court of law, but in the court of public opinion. And as a result of that, the outrage that people felt about Kelo, we've seen an enormous backlash against this decision. Over 40 state legislatures have changed their laws, so a lot of good has come out of a very bad Supreme Court decision.
And you have another eminent domain case in Atlantic City. The casino, the Revell Casino, wants to bulldoze Charlie Birnbaum's home.
Jefferson said that you have to be eternally vigilant in the fight for liberty because governments are not going to stop trying to violate liberty. So you've starting to see eminent domain abuse come back, and like in Atlantic City, but we're there to defend Mr. Birnbaum and his effort to try to hold on to his home.
The lawyers against you say, we don't have to we don't have to provide the exact details of how we plan to use the land. They say it's redevelopment. The economic engine of the casinos in Atlantic City is vital to the success of the state. That's a public purpose. We have to expand this.
Right. Well, it's absolutely outrageous. Of course, all the Atlantic City casinos now are going bankrupt.
They're shrinking.
They have no idea what they're going to do with the land. They just say, we want to take it now. We'll figure out later on. That's exactly what they did in New London. They took Suzette Kilo's home and the home of her neighbors, and now 9 years after the Supreme Court decision, there's no new tax revenue, nothing to show for these takings of property.
Now, the lawsuits that his institute files that I think are most important are their suits against laws that make it hard for the little guy to start a business. And here are some of their clients.
All I wanted was a chance to earn an honest living as a van driver.
As a tour guide.
As a hair braider.
But the government said I could not.
The government calls us outlaws.
A van driver, a tour guide, a hair braider.
What all these people have in common is they want to pursue an honest living, free of unreasonable government interference. But what you see too often are governments teaming up with large business interests in order to try to stop people from starting a taxi cab company or trying to pursue a lawful business occupation.
And the politicians often get contributions from the existing business.
Of course, it's a marriage of political power and private gain. And it's pure economic protectionism, which is not what the government should be doing.
And now there's a new one. Animal massage? What's that about?
Well, it's typically equine massage. It's usually other animals can get it, but it's typically for horses. This is where athletes get regular massages, and horses also benefit from having massages. But
Arizona has a law saying you may not do this for money unless
you become a licensed vet, unless you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, go to years and years of school simply for performing equine massage. And guess what? Even if the people would go to vet school, they don't teach it in the vet schools themselves. All this is about is lining the pockets of the vets, keeping people out of doing a legitimate business that horse owners, and apparently the horses like quite a bit.
And they do it with dogs and cats, too. So, Scott, I'm great that the Institute makes these videos, because we in TV like using them to explain what you do, but isn't this one a little too much?
I thought to myself, how was I going to fight this? And then I got a call from IJ.
And there was IJ.
They came riding in to save the day.
Come on!
Well, our work that we do is very serious, but that doesn't mean we can't have a little bit of fun and be happy warriors doing it.
Thank you, Scott Bullock. Coming up, an alternative to expensive lawyers, a way to solve problems that's free.
Sarah's new lungs arrived this afternoon.
Today, she has a new lease on life.
We bought stuff from you and had it checked out, and it's counterfeit.
No, not from me. You didn't buy anything from me, never.
Yeah, we bought it right here.
You didn't buy anything from me.
I was that young once. That was Stossel, the consumer reporter. I spent years confronting liars and cheats, and while it was good to expose them, I was frustrated because I couldn't punish the bad guys. So I was glad when lawyers got involved and sued the cheaters. That'll make things better, I thought. But then I realized that often lawsuits do more harm than good. They take forever. They cost a fortune, and often the crook still got off. Sometimes the victim would tell me, hey, I just got ripped off by my lawyer. The promise of solution by lawsuit is just not what it's cut out to be. So I'm glad there's now a cool new alternative. It's a free website called change.org. Its president is Jennifer Dulski. So explain it.
Sure. So Change.org, it's the world's largest petition platform. We empower everyday people to create change on the causes they care about. And we now have more than 70 million people using it, and we win victories an average of 20 a day, so almost one an hour now on every topic you can imagine.
And yeah, 70 million. How? How are you the biggest? Because there's all these other Angie's List, Yelp, iPetitions. What did you do that got 70 million?
Well, really, the heart of what we do comes from people's personal stories. So people come on the site, they talk about the things that matter to them and what they're struggling with in their lives, and then they use our platform to mobilize people around them, share those petitions, and create dialogue with the people who have the power to change them. And we do see it working every day.
And on YouTube, she posts some of their victories. Here are 3.
Our 18-year-old son, Ryan, was kicked out of Boy Scouts simply because he's gay.
A Pennsylvania girl battling a deadly disease. She's in serious need of a lung transplant.
Boy Scouts will now admit openly gay scouts.
Sarah's new lungs arrived this afternoon.
Today, she has a new lease on life.
They kicked her off the team for being a girl.
I just really wanted to play, have other girls be able to play.
Her last first, she was allowed to play.
That's right. So that's Caroline Pla, 11-year-old girl from Pennsylvania, and she was playing football her whole life, and then when she was 11, they decided girls could no longer play, and she started a petition on Change.org. She had hundreds of thousands of people sign it. She went on the Ellen Show, and little do you know, but they decided, the Archdiocese of Philadelphia decided to let her play football, and not just her, but every girl who wants to play from here on.
It just caught on through Change.org.
That's right. She shares it with her friends and family first, and they share it, and from there, people are mobilized and these grow.
The girl needed a lung transplant, and the law at the time said children cannot receive transplants from adults.
That's right. So children under 12 could only receive transplants from other children, even though their bodies are large enough to take an adult lung.
An arbitrary cutoff.
That's right. And so Sarah's mom, this is Sarah Murnahan, she started a petition on Change when Sarah had only 2 weeks to live, and she was able to mobilize people effectively and actually get a stay from a judge to agree to give Sarah and one other boy lung transplants, so they both lived. And now the law has actually been changed, and children under 12 can be eligible for adult lungs.
And the Boy Scouts now will accept gays, but I don't think it was just because of you guys.
Yeah, we saw 124 different petitions over 13 months signed by 1.8 million people. It wasn't just one petition on our website. It was many, many campaigns over time and millions of people fighting this battle and us partnering with other organizations to make that happen.
A Fox station in Kansas City covered one of her successes. A boy built a little library and put it in his yard.
Get into reading and get to know your neighbors.
The family came home from a trip to find this letter explaining the library violates an ordinance which doesn't allow structures in the front yard of single-family homes.
Which I think was put there to keep people from putting cars in their front yards.
Presumably, but another citizen who heard about this started a petition on his behalf, and it took just 33 signatures for that petition to convince the city to change the ordinance and let him keep the lending library on his front lawn.
And you've gotten people out of jail. There's one, please grant Ryan Ferguson a new trial or freedom. 267,000 signatures.
That's right. So Ryan Ferguson had been in prison for 10 years for a crime he clearly didn't commit. Both witnesses had said that they recanted their testimony, that their testimony was not accurate, and there was no other evidence against him. And so after over 250,000...
But the lawyers just weren't unmoved? They put him in jail? They weren't going to touch it?
The trial went through, and so, yeah, his father started a petition asking them to either grant him a new trial or not, or to let him free. And they decided at first, that they would basically not retry him and they would let him free. And then we had another one, actually, just yesterday. We helped a man, Mark Woodsworth, also another man from Missouri, who had been in jail for 17 years for a crime he didn't commit. Turns out the prosecutors had been falsifying the evidence against him, and when that was discovered,
lawyers do that.
He was released. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. It's good to know we can do these things without lawyers. And coming up, our studio audience gets to award $1,000 to the person who submits the stupidest lawyer-driven warning label. And here's one entry. This decal, just the decal, meant to be stuck on a bicycle helmet, says, warning, decal for decoration only, will not prevent injury. More coming up. If you have the nerve to try to manufacture something in America, then probably you'll try to protect yourself from lawsuits by adding detailed warnings about what might happen if consumers use your product in some crazy way. So how stupid do these labels get? Well, pretty stupid. And Bob Dorigo-Jones runs the annual Wacky Warning Label contest. He gives $1,000 to the person who submits the stupidest warning label. So who wins this year? Well, after reviewing lots of entries, Bob has narrowed it down to 5, and he's agreed to let you, our studio audience, pick the worst. Whoever submitted the label that you pick gets the $1,000. So, Bob, what are the finalists?
All right. In a country where you can sue somebody if you catch your teeth in a basketball net while you're dunking the ball and then walk away with $50,000, anybody who makes a product is always looking over the shoulder for the next lawsuit. So here's why we see warning labels like this. On a football helmet, it says, warning, no helmet system can protect you from serious brain or neck injuries. And to avoid these risks, do not engage in the sport of football. So they're warning you not to use their product.
Number 2, these decals, they're just decals, and they say on this thing, be careful, this decal will not prevent injuries. It's for bike helmets.
Right.
Who needs that?
Right, that's pretty obvious.
And by the way, we call the companies, and the football helmet, the company didn't respond. On the bicycle helmet decals, they had no comment. What's the third?
Well, this is on a little battery booster, cell phone battery booster, and this is a growing trend of mistranslated warnings. It says, warning, get rid of children. Well,
so that's a foreign manufacturer who just struggles with English. Number 4 here, the decal is stuck. On this printer toner, I mean, this is awful black stuff, and it's deep inside the printer. It says, do not drink. Who would do that?
And one of my favorites, the last here you have a little child's ride-on toy, maybe for a 2 or 3-year-old, but it says, do not push vehicle while child is sitting in it. Well,
what else would you do with the thing?
Put that there?
Just do that?
Right.
This is Disney, my old employer. They didn't have any comment either. So which of these is the worst? In a moment, we'll get to vote. Which of these is the worst? The football helmet that says don't play football? The decal that says will not prevent injury? The battery charger that wants to get rid of children? The toner that says do not drink? Or the push toy that says don't push the vehicle while a child is in it? When we return, you vote and give out the prize money. Now we're back with some of our guests to take your questions and comments about lawsuit abuse. But first, we'll pick the winner of the worst warning label. But let's talk a little bit about why does this happen? This doesn't happen in other countries.
Right, and our intent is not to make fun of manufacturers who put these funny warning labels on their products. It's a realization that they feel a need to do that, otherwise they'll be sued over things that they should never be sued over. Like we talk about the basketball net lawsuit, or the guy who drilled his teeth with a wood router and then sued the maker of the wood router.
But why only in America?
Because we don't have a loser pay system. That's a big part of it, so people feel like they can sue without any downside. And
loser pay system means if you lose, you have to pay the other guy's legal bills.
That's right. Every other country that's industrialized has a loser pay system, so that if you sue somebody in a frivolous matter, you're going to pay their legal bills. That's a strong disincentive to sue.
And so we have all these labels, and people don't read the ones you ought to read.
Right. For example, on a box of PMS Midol, there's actually a warning label that says, do not use if you have an enlarged prostate. Well,
seems silly.
There might be a guy that has such a bad headache that he's willing to use his wife's PMS Midol. So that warning label needs to be
something
there.
you should use, like some of the medical labels.
Right.
So you ready to vote on the worst here? All right, so you only get to pick one. Raise your hand at the one you think is the stupidest. The football helmet that Bob has that says, no helmet can protect you from serious brain or neck injuries, including paralysis or death. To avoid these risks, do not engage in the sport of football. Who votes for that? Bunch of you. Okay, number 2, the decal that says this decal is for decoration only, will not prevent injury. Fewer of you. Number 3, you've got it, the battery charger, get rid of children. Wow, that's in first place so far. You're voting twice, some of you. Number 4, I've got it, the ink toner that says, do not drink. Okay, nobody votes for that. And number 5, the push toy, here it is. You know, don't push the vehicle while a child is riding in it. Who votes for that? Wow, I thought that was going to win. So the winner is...
Get rid of children.
Cell phone battery booster. And he's going to give $1,000 to...
Yes, Center for America will send $1,000 to Larry Klein from Costa Mesa, California.
Second prize, the football helmet, Mark Lendl of Novi, Minnesota. So that's $500, right?
$500.
$500. All right, now your questions for some of our other guests. Who's first? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Kenny. This is from Mr. Norman. We know in this country there are lots of horrendous laws, but what can we as ordinary citizens do to try to fix it ourselves?
We have become a society that looks to solve everything by passing a criminal law. And at first blush, it's really the politicians. Because anytime something bad happens, it's easy to say, let's make another criminal law or let's make the penalties stiffer. But really, it's us as individuals. We have to stand up and say, enough. We have to say to our politicians, don't give us more criminal laws unless you can show what the impact is going to be, show us what benefit we're going to get, show us what the costs are going to be of enforcing it. It's up to the people now to say, enough.
Yes.
I was wondering how many laws there are in America, like overall.
Too many. Too many. It's probably
nobody knows. They can't even count the criminal law, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Nick Ritchie from Connecticut. My question is for Scott in the middle. Why are laws so unclear? You have one lawyer tell you one thing and another lawyer tell you something completely different.
Laws should try to be as clear and simple as they possibly can be. But when
we try to make them clear, right?
If we stuck to simple rules and abided by the Constitution as well, which isn't very long, even though it is such a great document, we would have a much freer society.
Yes, sir.
This is for Norman. Earlier we talked about Hillary Clinton getting a child rapist acquitted. Couldn't she have, or any defense lawyer, look at the evidence, say, this guy is guilty, I'm not going to defend him, but instead they choose to get this person off on a technicality and a rapist goes free?
Well, I don't know what the facts of that case were, but what I know is this. Every person, when they are confronted with the full force of the government, they are entitled to have somebody stand up for them and make sure that if the evidence is there and that it's legal, that's what is required in order to convict somebody. Is there anybody here who hasn't done something wrong in their life? Can anybody raise their hand and say, I've never done any? Of course not.
Anybody raise their hand?
No one can. Okay. So we have one saint and the rest of the audience. Look, this is about human dignity. The idea of having representation for a person is about the dignity of the individual.
Thank you, Norman, Scott, Bob. Coming up, my day in court. Why, it made me hate lawyers and their tricks. But it ends with good news. The bad guy's in jail. I've sued and been sued. When people just cannot agree, sometimes there's no other option but going to court. That's why we have court and judges and lawyers and laws. But what the lawyers do with their power is often outrageous. They are so slow and expensive. And then they're mostly indifferent to the fact that they're slow and expensive. They say, that's just the way our system works. So I close tonight with one example from my life.
John Stossel reports the biting pain.
Years ago, I reported on a Philadelphia dentist who I said was enriching himself at patients' and insurance companies' expense by telling people you need treatment for a problem with your jaw.
Tell me about the clicking in your jaw.
Mainly when I eat, I hear click, click.
Now, my jaw clicks sometimes, but it wasn't a problem that needed treatment. However, Dr. Owen Rogel said I had a TMJ problem and he'd use fancy machines to make certain. Sure enough, his Doppler hears noises in the joint. The sonogram draws a computer graph of my click. This EMG test supposedly showed my muscles were sore.
These machines confirm that I have, which is that I have TMJ. 3 dentists examined me and found no TMJ. But you find it. You always find TMJ?
No, you obviously have a TMJ problem.
Why don't 3 other dentists see it? Why do you only you see it?
We use objective documentation. If they didn't identify it, well, that doesn't mean you don't have it. That just means that they didn't identify it.
Rogel recommended this bite plate and other treatments that would take 4 to 6 months and cost around $3,000.
I then went on TV and basically said Rogel ran a dental mill that ripped people off. So he sued me for libel. Rogel claimed that he didn't tell me to get treatment. Therefore, I damaged his reputation and a jury would punish me now. Except now is not the right word. Nothing ever happens now in our legal system. Every day in the free market, in real life, we invent ways to do things faster, better, cheaper. We have to because there's competition. But in the legal system, lawyers act like a monopoly. They almost never innovate. Nothing goes quickly. It almost makes me feel sorry for people who sue me. Before trial, my lawyers demanded that Rogel produce paperwork detailing all persons with whom you've had written or oral communication, and each workshop or seminar in which you've participated, including but not limited to your seminars for dentists, physicians, lawyers, and headache sufferers, as well as the date, location, attendance, and amount charged to each attendee, and so on. The paperwork and delays were endless. Rogel had to wait nearly 4 years just to get me into court.
March 24th, 1989 was a night of infamy when Owen Rogel was attacked by 2020 like no individual ever got attacked.
His lawyer finally got to call me a liar who sensationalized in pursuit of TV ratings. He said Rogel never recommended that Stossel get treatment. I'd lied about that.
Fortunately, my exam was on videotape. The jury could just watch the tape and then decide. But that never happened. Instead, we had lawyer war. His lawyers played a few minutes that made it seem as if he hadn't recommended treatment. My lawyers played parts that showed he did. This happened again and again. 3-minute snippets back and forth, day after day for 2 weeks. It was ridiculous. Why didn't the judge say, shut up, you lawyers, you're wasting the public's money and the poor jurors' time, just play the tape? Because the judge is in on the lawyer's scam. Judges are just lawyers in robes, and they're comfortable with the system's slow pace. Trials resemble religious rituals. We don't get speedy justice, but we get lots of pompous ceremony.
All rise.
You must stand when the judge appears. We call them honorable, whether the judge is or not.
The Honorable Judge Frank Dianati.
The Honorable David L. Fury.
The Honorable Raymond O. Gross.
The Honorable Judge Locke is now presiding.
Lawyers say this pomp is necessary to maintain respect for the law. But that's absurd. A court can take away all my money, and in a criminal case, take away my freedom. That ought to get them enough respect. The pompous rituals suggest there's magic in law, work only lawyers can do. And since many are paid by the hour, the slow tradition lets them run up the bills. In my trial, when the jury finally got to meet and decide my fate, they decided that I did not libel Rogel by falsely portraying him as a charlatan. In fact, the trial revealed that Rogel had ripped off insurance companies and lied on the witness stand. So the court said he had to pay $250,000 to cover my side's legal bills. Yippee, I won. Except I didn't win. In our system, you lose even when you win, because the lawyers charge so much. The money ABC got from Rogel hardly covered its legal costs. They were more than $1 million. Dr. Rogel then went on to get even richer. Here's a story about his fancy apartment. He got this rich with the help of more lawyers. Here's his view. Accident lawyers sent him patients, and Rogel charged insurance companies big bucks to use dubious machines that he claimed would relieve their pain. Finally, 20 years after we revealed his insurance scam, Philadelphia prosecutors nailed him and his daughter for a similar fraud. And Rogel's now in jail. Good, but it took much too long. Everything lawyers do takes too long. We need law and lawyers to keep the peace, but you should avoid using them. That's our show. See you next week.